Excellent. Okay, so I just want to say welcome and good morning. I'd firstly like to introduce myself, Christine Kirkby. I'm a lecturer at the College of Animal Welfare for Leadership and Management and Coaching and Mentoring, and one or two other ones as well. And today with me, we've got Philippa Barclay from Wheelhouse Vets and Stacey Smith from Vet for Life. So welcome to the podcast today. Today we're going to be discussing leadership and management in the workplace, and with both Philippa and Stacey having completed their level 5 leadership and management programme with the college. So I'll begin with posing my question first to get a little bit more background information on your roles in your organisations and experience in leadership and management. So firstly, if I pose that to Stacey, please.
Morning. Thank you very much for inviting me today.
You're welcome.
My name is Stacey. I embarked on the course when I was still a head nurse working with Philippa at the Wheelhouse, and I very quickly progressed into the nursing manager. So the course was actually completed while I was doing my nursing manager role at the Wheelhouse. Right. And since then I have progressed on to be a practice manager at Vet for Life. So
congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's it definitely has helped with my journey, and it's opened up my eyes to lots of different things.
Excellent. Well done. That's amazing news.
Thank you.
And then can I pose the question to Philippa, please?
Hi, good morning. So I came to the Wheelhouse as a locum nurse, and then during COVID sort of fell into the head nursing role, and thanks to the support of Stacey, she recommended that I do the certificate so that I can develop more for that role and have a better understanding of what leadership actually entails and how I could support the team more. So that was how I ended up doing the certificate for my head nursing role.
Excellent. So you're both in really busy practices then. So obviously as head nurse, practice manager, then what do you believe can be the fundamental principles of effective leadership? If I come to Stacey, please.
I think the biggest one for me is always communication, and it's always one that's overlooked because it's something that we do very easily. We communicate naturally, but the correct level of communication and the way we communicate is very important. So that is definitely my number one. I think empowering the team and leading by example, being a role model, there's so much out there that people look to you. And I think sometimes in a leadership role, you forget that everybody looks at you in a slightly different light when you're in a leadership role. And I think that's very important to remember.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're looking at you because you should be leading by example.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Stacey. If I could come to you now, Philippa, please.
Absolutely, 100% agree with all of those points. And just a few more to add to that is being open and honest with everybody and having full transparency. You know, there's no secrets. We're not hiding anything because we're all part of the same team. And it's very important to understand everybody as an individual as well. And it's setting the tone every day. Come in and just setting the tone. You know, make it a happy place to be. That rubs off on people. So yeah, leading by example, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah, I totally agree with you, Philippa and Stacey. You know, we should be aware of our staff and how we want to empower them in their roles, but being open and honest, totally transparent as well, like you were saying, and I totally agree. So how do we make sure then that in our role, in that leadership and management role, that within your organisation you would foster a positive and inclusive workplace culture? If I come to you, Philippa, please.
So one of my roles is to do what Stacey used to do as manager when she was at the Wheelhouse, which is to organise the nurses' rota. And
Okay.
I think it's really important that we have flexibility with that. So we're taking everybody's individual needs and adapting the rota so that we're supporting people with work-life balance, wellness, also things that they particularly enjoy when they come into work. You know, if one nurse prefers doing surgery and one prefers doing clinics, we can make adaptations for that as well. So it's personal preferences and needs, and making sure that this is fair and consistent, and just being able to give things back to the team. They work very hard, and showing that we appreciate everything that's done by being able to give things back, because we've got the power to do that in this role.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. And Stacey, your thoughts on how you could foster that positive and inclusive workplace culture?
I think there's a lot around this, and I think relating to your team, because when you talk about positivity, sometimes you can be over positive, and I think using your judgment at that time to be able to say, I do understand this is stressful, but it's going to get better. Not, it's fine, it's fine.
Yeah.
If you say that all the time, it becomes
leading
a little
them
bit
into
just
a
like
false sense of security then.
Yes, and
Yeah.
the genuine answer, you need to be able to be genuine with them and say, I know this is difficult, but we're going to bring this through and we're working on it. And I think, again, being open and honest and building trust with your team, so then your team trusts you. And I think that makes positivity, because if there is anything going on, they know that we're doing the best that we can, and in any circumstance we're trying to do the best by them and our patients and everything in the whole way. And I think just having a check-in with yourself sometimes is a good way of making sure that you are on the right level and that you're portraying that level of positivity and good culture, but then also remembering that other people have got things going on, so not everyone is on the same level as you.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think also, what's your thoughts with making sure that your team knows about the company's values and goals,
Yes.
and bringing that maybe within their everyday work, such as, you know, you might just organise a task for them, but bringing into that maybe some smart targets that they can then see with the bigger picture. How do you think that that's going to help them knowing what the bigger picture is of what the company's vision is?
Yeah, I mean, we do the one-to-one catch-ups are a really good time to go over what our mission statement is, and, you know, what our goals are, and be able to, you know, see what we've already achieved and where we're going and where the company is taking us. Yeah, again, that falls back into communication. So
it does, totally. Yeah, so much falls back to communication and what we've said previously, and being able to, like you said, both of you, you know, promoting that work-life balance is really important for your staff as well, and that's hopefully going to prove a positive and inclusive workplace culture then. So thank you both for that. So moving on then, because obviously we're trying to install this positive culture within your organisations, but we're continuously aware that our business environment is changing constantly. And I'm sure, you know, our environment here at the college changes constantly, but I'm sure in your practices it changes all the time. So how do you become quite adaptable to that? Could you give me examples of some of the ways that you're adaptable with those changes? Perhaps if I pose that first to Philippa, please.
So the key word here is that we trial things. We see how things go, and we are wanting everybody's feedback. Everybody's opinions and experiences are all valid. There are changes that are big, there are changes that are small, but how they affect each individual and their roles and their day-to-day you know, flow can be very, very different. So you know, being able to accept myself that I'm going to be implementing changes and really focusing on what the objective is. And if people understand what we're trying to achieve, then it makes it easier to be able to trial things.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Philippa. If I could pose the same to you, Stacey, then please.
I think, yeah, flexibility is one of the biggest things, and individuality. So everything is different. So that the business is constantly changing, but your team is constantly changing with what needs they need. So there's lots of different things to take into account. And I think every situation should be, this is coming from a nurse's head, every situation should be addressed as its own situation, not as one that you've done before, because two cases are never the same. So you always want to just make sure that you can be flexible. I completely agree with Philippa with trials. We will talk to people and say, let's try this for a while, see how this comes. And I will also say to, if there is something that is changing, that needs to change, and whether that's a person that needs to change what they're doing or how they're working, I will always ask them their opinion and see what they want what to happen, because they're the person with the change. So tell me what you need from me and I will see what we can do for you. And I think that's really important. And trying to keep up to date with changes in the business is very important, and trying to be ahead as best you can to try and meet those things, so it's not so much of a shock when there are changes. And I'm going to say that word again, and I'm sure I'm going to say it many a time: communication. If there is a change that is up and coming, let's communicate it. Let's let them know. We know there is a change curve. We know there is these things going on in people's brains that we need to deal with. So let's preempt it. Let's put it out there. This is going to happen. Come and talk to me if you're concerned. Let's talk about it. Let's have a chat. And I think it is adapting those as well. Some people will come quite happily and have a chat with me. Others will send me an email. Others will want to talk to me over the phone. And I think it's being adaptable to deal with all of those situations and letting people have their moments, how they feel best.
And I think, like you've just said, it's having that sort of a democratic approach as well, isn't it? So that you're getting on board their feedback and opinions and views, in order that you're going to then make those changes with your staff on board with it. So that, you know, those changes become easier. Okay, you're all going to have challenges and that, but if you're not communicating it in the right way with your team, and you're not being supportive and getting their views, and perhaps if you approached it in a different way, maybe an autocratic way, then you wouldn't have that support. That transition wouldn't be easy. So there'd be a lot of other problems. But thank you both for your thoughts on that. Sorry, Philippa, were you going to say
something? Just to add something in there, one of our values that really do express with the nursing team is that everybody has a voice, and we encourage everybody to share that voice. So like Stacey said, some people may want to talk one-to-one. Some people are very outspoken in a group environment, like at a nurses meeting. We present points so that we can discuss as a nurses team away from other managers and vets, and that's our opportunity to be able to share what we would like as a nursing team and how people are feeling. Very much want people to talk about their feelings about things. And then my role can be taking those points upwards, just as it is bringing the points downwards from the management meetings, so they can use me as that voice projection for them.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Thanks, Philippa. So that sort of leads me on to how you're embracing getting others' points of view, and making sure your team of having their voice, as you say, Philippa. So I'd like to hear about some of those experiences that you've had in your leadership roles that have been really successful. So I'll pose that first to Stacey, please.
I guess at this point I'm going to talk about what I've experienced.
Of course.
So with success, obviously I have, using what I've learnt with my certificate, I have progressed my career. So I have moved on to different levels, and I've learnt different things, and I've used what I've learnt. One of the successes that I feel that I've had is I've helped to develop different ways of doing things, both at the Wheelhouse and in my new role, because when I came here it was very different, so I had to think about how they were working and successes that we could do here and different changes that I could make. So I guess my biggest success is some of the legacy stuff that I've left at the Wheelhouse, and I'll go into that a little bit more detail later.
Okay.
and then what I can bring forward and how I want to help others feel the success that I have in my career.
Yeah. Thank you, Stacey. If I could pose the same then to you, Philippa, please. Some of your successful experiences.
So it's been implementing different things from the course that were new to me. It was all new, a whole new experience coming into leadership and management. So, I mean, I really enjoyed learning about coaching and mentoring. I love interacting with people, and I truly care about all the nurses on the team. I love celebrating their achievements, being able to support the students, and even the qualified nurses are going on to doing achievements. So being able to be there and help them, giving them extra study time on the rota, you know, just small things that I can do. And you see their reactions and them growing and them enjoying work, and then that makes me feel good that I can help on that journey. Also, the course really helped with confidence with my weak areas.
Okay.
I have to say, conflict resolution is really tough. Really tough. And Tuckman's model was my favourite thing to learn about.
You loved that model, didn't you? Yes.
Over and over again, realising how new people coming into the team and how the dynamics change. And is it a matter of people just need to give people time to settle in and get to know them? Or is it a true personality clash and things are going to go wrong and I need to step in? So, yeah, so many things on the course have helped me with things that I've never had to, you know, try and deal with before. And so, yeah, and trying to react to things from the knowledge that I've now gained rather than emotions, just straight away jumping into something. So writing a message to myself, leaving it until the next day, is that actually appropriate to send to somebody, and then forwarding it on rather than jumping straight in. I can now sit back, have a think about it. What did I learn about that? How can I actually approach this in the correct manner?
And that presumably then has been recognised by your senior management, how you approach things now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they can trust me a little bit more.
But that's all good, isn't it? That's, you know, through you being successful now in your role. So that's really good. Thank you.
We have a lovely management team as well, where we can go to each other. I feel completely comfortable saying to them, I'm out of my comfort zone a bit here. This is what I've learned. Do you agree that this is the correct way to approach this? So
no, that's really good, because that leads us on to sometimes there are going to be challenging times, aren't there? And obviously that's one of the things that you've just mentioned, Philippa, is that having that support there where you can go to your senior management has maybe helped you address some of those challenging times. Can you tell me of maybe some of the times that you've had to use that where it's been quite challenging for you?
I think the conflict resolution, really, of, you know, agreeing that what stage do I step in, and them trusting me that I'm saying this is how I believe this individual, you know, it's more of a personality thing. Let's give it a little bit more time. And also we did have a situation where one of the nurses, with good intentions, we all have good intentions, but going back to those different forms of communication, people read things in different ways. So a message had gone out, but it actually had been interpreted in lots of different ways by different people. So it was being able to support that person, but also be able to explain to the team this was what was done and why, and just trying to connect with everybody and yeah, sort of get everybody back together and resolving that.
And you
conflict.
feel that you'd have handled that better after doing the course than what you would have done previously?
I would have, if I hadn't have done the course, I wouldn't have stepped in. I would have asked my clinical director to have the conversations. But from doing the course and having the confidence, I'm like, no, this is one of my team members. This is me that needs to be addressing this and talking to everybody. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you, Philippa, for that. If I can pose the question then to Stacey, any sort of challenging times, and I'm sure in your different roles, you'll have come across various challenging times.
Yes, yeah, there's been lots of different things. I guess most recently is having a new job.
Yes.
So that is always a challenging time. I did go through a process of redundancy with my old role, and I think what I have learnt from the course and the support that I had from the leadership team when I was at the Will House taught me that you sometimes do not have control of a situation, but you can control how you are within that situation.
Yes.
And how you react to that situation, and that was something that really resonated with me through that process. And then through the process of finding a new job, I had to use my, I guess, assessing me. That was part of the course that I found the most eye-opening, was to assess me and to check in with me and where I was. And I knew at that point that I wasn't necessarily ready to find that new role and to push myself, and I needed to give myself time. And to be able to teach yourself that is very difficult,
hard.
and to be able to recognize not now, you're not there, is very difficult. And I think half of the I did the stress and conflict section on my ILM, and I feel that was very important, and that sort of, I used those skills in this situation. And then from that I got my new role, and I started in a new practice, in a very different practice. It's with a completely different company, a completely different level, and I came into a well-functioning practice where I am very, very different to the previous practice manager.
Yeah.
So the challenges that I had was, oh, you're different. Yes, I'm different. I'm different. I'm very different in the way I approach things, and the way I deal with things, and the way I expect you guys to interact with me. So that was quite challenging, because I sort of felt like the outsider. Even though they're amazing. I love where I work. They're absolutely supportive. The team are fantastic. But I did have that self-doubt of, can I do this? Can I do this? And then it was like pulling everything I'd learned out of myself to go, I can do this. I can do this, and I can do that. And then things are thrown at me and they're asking me questions, and I'm like, oh God, I need to answer that. And actually I could. And that gave me the confidence then to continue with what I'm doing. And now I feel very settled. I've been here 6 months and I feel very settled in my role. I have built the good relationships, and I think that's quite hard, because that's challenging for the team that I'm going into, as well as myself.
Yes. When they've been used to somebody different.
Yes.
For was it for a long period of time that you're
2 years?
2 years, right? Yeah. So, it's quite a big change, isn't it, for the whole team and for yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and then
probably,
what you left behind
yes,
was my challenge, because my mentor had moved on to a new team.
Yeah. So that must have affected you in your role then as well then.
It did. It was a tough year, but Stacey had set some wonderful standards, and having worked alongside her, I knew some of her little secrets. So it was a hard transition to learning new things with rota and stuff like that. But luckily, I had a great teacher. So
yeah.
Thank you.
No, there's always going to be challenging times, it doesn't matter what workplace you're in, there will always be challenging times, but it's how you deal with that. And like you say, having come on the course, you've learned so much. You've obviously done some of the questionnaires. Did you do the emotional intelligence questionnaires as well? You'd have done those to find out a little bit more about yourself and how you deal with situations. So it's all been of benefit, hasn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, very much.
So I think looking at it maybe we've looked at it from your own perspective, really. How about looking at it now with regards to your team, and then how can you in your role be able to make sure that you're investing in your team, showing them to help them to develop so that it has a positive impact on the team? And if I come to Philippa first, please.
Yeah, working with individuals in the team and getting to know them and being able to, I think I said before, be that person that's in the middle so that I can help connect everybody and direct everybody. Yeah,
because you've got a number of students, haven't you,
yes,
that are in your team. So how do you make sure that you're supporting them really in their newfound employment with yourself?
So we've got lots of different people that are at different levels, whether they're at the beginning starting with an apprenticeship or whether they're qualified and going on to doing certificates. Yeah. And again, it's recognising everybody's needs. I think when people come to me and say, you know, is there anything we can do? I'm very much right. Let's find a way. How can I support you? I never turn around and go, oh, it's easy, you'll be fine. Because what's easy to one isn't easy to another.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And some people are very good academically but struggle with some practical and vice versa. So it could be allowing extra study time on the rota, buddying somebody up with somebody for specific parts of the day for
sure.
You know, so many different roles with nursing, you know, which bit is the weaker bit that they want maybe some extra time. You know, it's just finding out what each person needs for support. And I think something that is becoming more and more recognised in the workplace is neurodiversity. And we've got a very open team that people can express how they're feeling and what their needs are. So we do have a member of the team with high functioning autism. And she's been fantastic at coming in and saying, this is what I have, this is how I work. I want you to tell me straight away if anything is inappropriate or how I can improve it. So she likes that direct feedback straight away.
Yeah, that helps everyone in the team then, doesn't it?
Exactly. But then it could be that somebody else doesn't feel comfortable giving direct feedback, so they can then feedback to me and then I can feedback. So it's understanding each individual and piecing everything together so that everybody feels happy and comfortable. And it's working really well. It's people developing at their pace in the way that suits them.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. Thanks, Philippa. If I could come to you, Stacey, then please.
Yeah, I was just listening to Philippa then, and there was loads of stuff floating around, and I have sort of two ways of looking at this. I'm also part of the VMG directive board, and we look to develop all managers within the veterinary industry. So for me, I do use a lot of my skills that I've learned in those meetings with my background and my experiences. And I feel in that way we're looking at developing management from your reception, admin, vets, nurses. You know, it's not just the clinical side, so it's both sides. And I think that comes a holistic view of what we can provide as a VMG group to people. So that's sort of my bigger picture of how I feel that I'm using what I've learned to help develop others. And in practice, it's slightly different to what Philippa has, because Philippa has a direct team that she works with and she can have a direct impact on them. But for me, when I was nursing manager with Philippa and where I am now, I sort of have the smaller group of people. So I have 2 people now. I have my clinical nursing manager and my client care manager that I help to realize what they need to do to be able to help their teams. So they come to me and they're talking about different things, and I've got to I help develop them in their role, which then impacts on their team. So I feel like I'm a little bit of a director in that way. I'm directing them in the right way to be able to assist their teams and giving them the confidence and knowledge that they need in order to develop their teams. So it's everything that Philippa does, but from a more stand back level, which I think is quite hard to describe. And actually, when I became the nursing manager at Wheelhouse, it was incredibly difficult because I did the direct managing, and then I became that person that just sort of discussed it and helped with things rather than did it myself. So it was quite difficult to learn. And I think that again comes back to assessing myself and checking in on myself to make sure that I'm doing what they want me to do rather than being overpowering and micromanaging, which is not helping develop my teams.
Absolutely not, because they've got to make their own mistakes, haven't they?
Yes.
Yes. And that's the only way, you know, they're potentially going to learn.
Yeah.
But I think with all of your different roles that you've had, that's helped you now to become what you are in this role as practice manager.
Massively.
Albeit that you're now at a level where you're disseminating that information through now to the other teams within that practice. So
I feel like I enable them. I enable them to develop the way they want to develop.
Yes. Yeah. Which, you know, you're there still as that support, just not really on the floor really at the moment, but you're still there as that support, which is still very important. So thank you for those sort of different ways that we can look at that success really, that you've both had. So when both of you came on the leadership and management course through the college, one of the many things that I think you did take on board, which we've sort of mentioned a little earlier, was the leadership styles. But if you can tell me a little bit about some situations that you've had within the organisations you're working for, where you've then adapted that style. So perhaps I'll give you an example. Perhaps it might have been a disciplinary situation, or it might have been just a simple task you're giving to somebody. But what different styles might you have used? We touched on autocratic, we touched on democratic, but there's many others. And in your particular practices, I would imagine paternalistic crops up quite a lot. So I'll leave you to tell me a little bit about which styles you've used really. So if I come to Philippa first, please.
Yes, definitely maternal, which is the opposite to micromanaging really, isn't it? I like to give the space, let them develop at their pace in their way, but still holding that guidance and coaching through. So it's, you know, people need to spread their wings and sometimes have that little push, but it's okay, I'm here. You need to come out of your comfort zone. If you don't come out, then you won't know what that feels like. So it's not pushing too hard, but also making sure we're not holding people back. And that,
so you're
that
nurturing them really, aren't you?
I'm very
paternalistic manner, style. Yes.
And I think that comes from going back to where I say getting to know people as individuals with their learning styles, communication styles, personality styles, and being able to adapt mine to be able to communicate better and have better understanding. And that, an example of that is with the neurodiversity, of where I'm very much let's make things fun, and not too militant in the workplace, and have sort of incorporated, oh, we'll do this, it will be great, but actually the person with autism that didn't suit their style, and it actually
Yes.
caused more stress. And so I've now learned that isn't the way to approach. Let's think about how it's going to affect different people and adjust what I'm doing.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thanks, Philippa. So Stacey, do you find yourself using different styles? I would imagine in your role now, you might be using a few more different styles, maybe a combination actually.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, talking about learning styles and stuff like that, when I first did the course, learning that the way I do it is not always the correct way of doing it, is not always received the way I want it to be received and how I see it. So I think to learn to be able to read someone and adjust even during a meeting, you go into that meeting, especially where I am now, I haven't been here very long. I don't know everybody as well as I could do. And when I go into a meeting, I need to go in and start the conversation and see where it leads. So I might go through 3 different learning styles or leadership styles in that one conversation, depending on what they need from me.
Yes.
And, you know, I can always at that point say to them, do you understand? Do you need something different from me? And I think that's the biggest thing, is being open to listening to them, because sometimes you see something and you're explaining something, but what they see and they hear is very different. So you need to hear what they're seeing and what they're hearing to be able to change.
Yes.
And that does from meetings and emails. And going back to what Philippa said earlier, you know, it's very easy with emails to write it out, ping it out, and then it be perceived very wrong. So it's very good to write that email, sit on it for a bit. I quite often have a few sat in my drafts, just go back to them, reread them, make sure everything is okay, and then before I send anything out, just because it can be, learning and leadership styles are very similar but different. You've got to be able to be flowing, flexible and adaptable as and when you need it. And you may have that conversation where someone starts very angry and then they're very upset and then they need guidance, and then you've just got to constantly adapt and assess the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of what you were saying there with like emails, etc., coming back to them, it's all about going back again. Communication is key, isn't it?
Yes, massively.
Making sure that it isn't misread when it is received by that person. So like you say, just going back again, having a look at that, just making sure you've posed that correctly so it doesn't come across.
Sorry.
Oh, you've gone quite
Night
dark.
Oh,
Oops.
we've got money saving lights. It's because I haven't moved around very much. I do apologise. Energy
No
saving.
worries. But yes, there's so many different leadership styles that, you know, you will find in your roles that you've probably undertaken a combination of such. Perhaps if it's a difficult situation, perhaps if it's one where you're dealing with a task, maybe it might be something in theatre. Your leadership styles are going to change dependent on that situation. So, you know, if it's one where they've got to abide by certain rules for health and safety, etc., then you're probably going to be looking at a bureaucratic leadership style. But also, if you've got a new student as well, you're going to have a combination of that paternalistic style as well, because you're nurturing them to grow in that field, aren't you? But they've also got to be aware of the rules and regulations. So there's lots of different circumstances where you'd be changing and adapting those different learning styles. Especially like if you had a disciplinary as well, then again, you're probably using like an autocratic and bureaucratic as well, because you've got to follow procedure and policies. So lots of different ones that, you know, we could go on for quite a while talking about different situations that you'd have to be adaptable in. But thinking about your team as a whole, then how would you measure success within your team? And if I pose that to Philippa, please.
So it's achieving that positive work culture, everybody working towards the same thing, having similar values, respecting each other. It is, you know, you do want to be friends with the people you work with, because we're coming and spending every day together. So we want it to be a fun place to be, but at the same time we really want to go with the professional standards. So it's getting
Yes.
that balance between the two, that everybody feels safe and happy coming into work, enjoying their work, and all the achievements, celebrating each other, and everything that we do for the patients, the clients, and each other.
So might that be, you've mentioned like the clients as well, would that be doing sorts of things like surveys, for example, to measure that success as to whether you're delivering a good service?
Yes, having feedback and reviews. We did an open day or an open event about weight management, and the nurse clinics, definitely being able to educate and support clients and getting their feedback on those. We do they're like not surveys, more feedback forms within the team, the Google forms that Stacey taught me how to do, because computers aren't my strong point, but you know, that's a very effective way. I think the newest thing I've learned is actually on WhatsApp, where we can do a polling vote. So I can pose a question to the nursing team, everybody gets it instantly because it's not done on the internal messaging service that they have to be logged in to use, and it could be about a social event, and people tick which yes, no, maybe. So there's always new things coming out of how we can communicate and yeah, how we feel about things. Did we think that went well? Yes, you know, put a vote in.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Philippa. And Stacey, what sort of ways would you measure success in your team?
I mirror a massive amount of what Philippa has just said, and I'm pleased you're here using the Google Forms. That makes me very happy. It is about, to me, I'm an observer, so I will sit back and I'll listen and I'll watch and I'll see what's happening, but for the very basics, if you know you've got a happy team, that they'll be interacting, they'll be productive, they're effective, they're efficient, and then they're happy to interact with clients, they're happy with patients. It rollerballs all the way through, so you then get your good feedback from your clients. So when they do talk about everything comes from above, it very much is, because if we can make it happy up here, then it goes all the way down to our patients and our clients. So, you know, to look at the success of the development and the support is looking at the team and seeing, are they happy to progress? Do they know where they're going? Do they understand what's being asked of them? Are they content in their work? Do they turn up on time? Are they, you know, that sort of stuff is very basic, but for me it's those sort of things. And to see people chatting, and when Philippa talks about social events, if you can get buy-in to social events, it means that they're happy interacting with each other and they want to spend time with each other outside of work when they don't have to. And I think these sorts of things are things that sometimes are missed because we don't look at them in such a big light. But if you've got 30 members of the team and 25 go out for dinner, that's amazing. Because that shows that they want to spend this social time, this optional time with each other, and I think that's something that is successful.
And also I'd agree with that, because if you've got a really good social life going on outside of the working environment, they're then going to feel that bit more supportive when they're in that working environment. So if things are going wrong, or you've got that challenge comes up, you're going to have the whole team pulling together, which is really important, isn't it? You know, to know that each other, you know, you've got each other's back. If something's going wrong, they're there, I can help you, even if it's not maybe their own role. They're offering their help and support to others, and that way, by you observing that, you can see it's working, isn't it?
So one of the biggest things that I did was, I don't have a desk. I don't have an admin area. I have a little table and a little stool, and I've put that in the middle of where the team are working during the day.
Great.
So I'm actually still involved with them, still being able to do that observation, as Stacey's pointed out, and I can hear things firsthand. I can see how people are reacting to when other people are
Yes.
speaking to them, and that gives me so much more than doing admin in an office where I'm not experiencing that. I haven't got as much engagement if I'm not actually in the same part of the building. So that has been so beneficial to have changed that. And with the social events, we also try and do nurse training events. So
Yes.
we've done our own seminars. The next one we're going to do is all sort of practical nursing skills to try and develop nursing in practice. And so this is things that people have come to with ideas, but actually being able to take that forward and make it happen is
that's fabulous.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that. So sort of coming towards the end of our discussion, and just thinking about your own courses that you undertook for the Leadership and Management Level 5, were there particular units for each of you that you felt were really useful to you and you've taken forward and just sort of develop further within your own practice? First, if I come to you, Stacey, please.
I would say that I've used all of them, but there's two that sort of stand out the most. And one of them is the stress and conflict, because no matter how long you're doing this, how many times you've done it, having those conversations and dealing with those situations is always difficult, and no one ever wants to do them. They're not something that goes, oh, I really want to be involved in that. You know, it's normally a, oh, do you need me? So that was very eye-opening for me. And the other one was the last one, which was assessing me and looking at me, because no one really does that. And you do take feedback, you do, you know, I used to have catch-ups with my line managers and I used to hear all of those sorts of stuff, but to make yourself look at yourself and evaluate what you're doing is very interesting, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Because
so
it makes
you'd have
you
done
look
things like the leadership styles, the Merrill Reed communication styles, you'd have done the emotional intelligence questionnaires, all of those, wouldn't you?
Yes, yeah, and I've done them since. So because I remember doing them with you, and you were like, these will change every time you do them, they will be different.
Absolutely.
And I have, and they have been different. And I find that really interesting, how our brains and how we react and how we answer these questions.
That's because you've grown in your roles, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it's definitely helped me look back at what I was to where I am and what I can be and what I can change and how I can develop myself. Definitely.
Fabulous. That's what I like to hear. And Philippa, your thoughts,
self-reflection, please. I think Lorna, who was a head nurse at Wheelhouse, who also completed the ILM level 5, her words of advice to me when I took the role on was, some days you go home feeling like a superhero, and some days you just go home worrying that you've let the team down. And it's very up and down, and you have to have that self-reflection to be putting yourself in that position of, again, setting the tone and reflecting positivity out. So that learning how to do that, and on the course as well, because it's so interactive, you're hearing other people's experiences, and you're not alone on this.
No,
there is other people are going through it and developing as well. But I would say the biggest areas for me was the coaching and mentoring. I took so much from that I could implement straight away the next day. They're changing, using all the models that we'd learned and SMART goals, and being able to actually structure coaching for the students and the one-to-one sessions, and having them try and outline what tasks they want to do in what order, and them having some sort of responsibility,
Yes.
was great, just to be able to do that straight away. And then stress and conflict was actually one of my favourite areas, because I could write a book on stress, really. But just learning about other people, and that conflict resolution, as I say, is my weakest area that I need to focus on developing with. And implementing change, I really enjoyed that module. Understanding that everybody
change one. Yes.
Yeah, everybody reacts to things differently. So how can we implement that we're nurturing people through a change curve in a way that it's not going to completely stress them? And putting that into practice, I've had to adapt and change as I've gone along with things. So yeah, and Belbin's team roles, I love that, picking out everybody. You know, everybody's got their favourite areas, and let's encourage those and support the ones that aren't enjoying that role as much. And putting everybody together for that theatre show. Yeah,
absolutely. Knowing who's going to work well with another person and having the right members together, then you know, for whatever task you're planning, you know who to put into that, and it's going to work well. Potentially it's going to work well. So yeah, Belbin team roles, and your other favourite, Tuckman's model as well.
Love that.
Okay, so that leaves us then with, if you had the opportunity to say to a potential student thinking of joining one of the leadership and management courses, what advice would you give them, Stacey?
Well, I've done this because I put Philippa forward. And I remember having that conversation with Philippa, and she was like, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. I think this is going to be too much. And I reassured her that, you know, having done it with yourself, the support is there, the level of knowledge that she needs, she already has. And it's just developing, moving with that knowledge. And to be honest, a lot of the stuff is recognizing that you already know this stuff.
Yes.
And then putting a title to it, if that makes sense. And I think anyone that would like to know more or understand more about the way they lead and the way they put forward and their teams, and I think this is a course for them. I think everybody has different levels of writing skills. I'm very open. I struggle a little bit with some of the academic side. Practically, it's easier for me, but the academic side is very difficult. But I felt that I could do this, and I definitely had all the confidence in Philippa. And I think anyone that needs to know more, I think this is a really nice way of doing it, because it is modular. So you can sort of pick the modules that are appropriate for your role at the time, which means you make it very relevant. Oh, I've done it again. I'm sorry.
Oh.
It's because I'm sitting still. It's very relevant to the role that you're doing at the time and the person that you need to be. So I think that it's so versatile. And I think that you were so supportive in that because you know the industry. One of the biggest things for me is you have those busy times, and you know that we do work a lot of hours, and sometimes we don't have the time to do what we need to do. So you will adapt around us as well, which makes it more flexible for us. And being here today and listening to Philippa and her answers makes me very proud to see where she's come from when I first said to her to go on this to where she is today. And I would recommend anyone that is in any level of leadership to take on this certificate, to give you confidence, abilities, techniques, and just a support network. If nothing else, you're building your network of people in the same situation as yourself. That would be me.
Yeah, thank you, Stacey. Yeah, and obviously anyone that's maybe struggling with writing any assignments, we've got our learning support team as well that can help with that. So, you know, whatever sort of challenge that you come across, we've got support to be able to help with that. But now let's come to you, Philippa, then. What would your advice be?
Take the chance. If you can do it, then do it. Don't miss an opportunity. Stacey you know, I had that opportunity. She encouraged me, she supported me, and I was like, the life stage that I'm at, I don't know if I can cope with all of that and taking on the role, and not really have been very academic in the past either. And but you know, you've got nothing to lose and so much to gain, because what you're learning about, you're implementing straight away. So you're developing that role, giving yourself a confidence. So it's just making things easier. I mean, yes, there are assignments, but Christine is so wonderful with understanding the job role that we're doing, and you set realistic deadlines. It's never, if you don't hit that date, you know, that's it, over. It's never that. It's, you know, oh, the study time I allocated and organised myself with, as we had an emergency surgery, or I had to cover sickness at work. It's like, that's life, that's fine. All the things that we're learning about on the course, about understanding people and wellness and work-life balance, is actually being incorporated into the learning. So you're then getting experience of it to then pass that on to your team. So it's just this lovely ongoing cycle of support that you're learning and doing. And yeah, it's just so enjoyable. It's the interactive, the way it's set up, that you can discuss things with other people, and yeah, it's really good fun. Do it.
Excellent. Excellent. And also, you got your award as well.
I did get an award.
Yes, don't forget that.
It was lovely, a little trophy, and it was really lovely to meet you in person as well, Christine. That was the magic of that day.
It was a lovely day, a lovely day. Yes,
yeah,
and so proud, actually. Yeah, very proud of you. Yeah. So that just leaves me then to conclude our discussion, really, and to thank you both very much, both Stacey and Philippa, for taking part today in our discussion on leadership and management in the workplace. It's been very insightful, very interesting discussion. I wish you both every success for the future in your roles, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.